Before I get into the events that will be covered in this video, I would like to address a semi-valid concern that a commenter had on my last video, the first video debuting the series. The commenter here states, and I quote, "Wikipedia is not a valid source, not because it's left-wing, but because it doesn't qualify as research material in any higher institution. This is basic stuff you learn in college. A valid source should be fact-checked, peer-reviewed, well-researched, and unbiased. Wikipedia simply doesn't qualify." The commenter here is technically correct, as Wikipedia themselves even admits to having been banned by higher educational institutions due to a lack of concrete reliability. For this reason, I would like to remind viewers that the purpose of this series on expulsions of Jews throughout history is not meant to be thorough, but simply a brief and simple overview. I would like to encourage anyone who is more deeply interested in this topic to use more reliable sources, such as scholarly articles, to do more definitive, more reliable research on this topic, rather than just taking everything stated in this video as complete fact. I would also like to state that, in defense of myself, I am only 18 years old and a senior in high school. Although I do technically take college classes as part of an early college program, these classes are centered around business and economics, not essay writing, so it is not likely that I would have known what this was beforehand. I would also like to remind anybody that if you want to see exactly where I got this information, that is obviously not completely reliable, it is from the Wikipedia article, Expulsions and Exodus of Jews Throughout History. Anyway, beginning. We will be starting in the 6th to 10th centuries section. Year 612. Visigothic King Sisipit mandated that every Jew who would refuse for over a year to have himself or his children and servants baptized, converted to Christianity, would be banished from the country and deprived of his possessions. So it seems that here we have Christian anti-Semitism. Or, I mean, that's kind of just how Christians were back then. In general, let's be real, they hated anybody that wasn't one of them. Year 629. The entire Jewish population of Galilee was massacred or expelled following the Jewish rebellion against Byzantium. Now, this is where stuff actually starts to get interesting, because if we look at what the Jewish revolt against Byzantium was, by clicking on the link, it takes us to the article, and again, this is not completely reliable, it's just Wikipedia, but using this as a source, it says, Jewish revolt against Heraclius. If we read the first paragraph, it says, the Jewish revolt against Heraclius was part of the Byzantine-Sasanian War of 602 to 628, and is considered this last serious Jewish attempt to regain autonomy in Palestina Prima prior to modern times. Following the Battle of Antioch in 613, Sharbaz led his forces through Palestina Secunda and into the Palestina Prima provinces. In 614, Sharbaz, geez, I can't pronounce these names, conquered Caesarea Maritima, the administrative capital of the Palestina Prima province. The Persian army, reinforced by Jewish forces led by Naima ben Hushil and Benjamin of Tiberias, would shortly capture Jerusalem without resistance. After only a few months, a Christian revolt occurred. Nehemiah ben Ushil and his council of 16 people were killed along with many other Jews, some throwing themselves off the city walls. Christians were able to briefly retake the city before the walls were breached by Sharbraz's forces who lay siege to the city. According to the Armenian bishop and historian Sabios, the siege resulted in a total Christian death toll of 17K. Christian sources later exaggerated the extent of the massacre, claiming a death toll as high as 90K. In addition, 35K or 37K people, including the patriarch Zacharias, are said to have been deported to Mesopotamia. The city is said to have been burnt down. However, neither widespread burning nor destruction of churches have been found in the archaeological record. Now, that was just the first two paragraphs of the article, but we could tell this is getting interesting, because if you Google what Palestina Prima was, that's actually modern-day Palestine. So it looks like around this period of time, um, this was the first Jewish invasion of Palestine, or the first attempt at it, because it doesn't really seem like it was successful before modern times, of course. I wouldn't say it was the first one, because it seems it was the last one before the more modern ones. So it's pretty clear. This is very interesting because, assuming that this source is accurate here, this shows that Jews have been having access to some extent to Palestine, modern day Palestine, for quite a while now. 7th century, Muhammad expelled two Jewish tribes, the Banu Kainuka and Banu Nadir, from the city of Medina. The Banu Qurayza tribe was slaughtered and the Jewish settlement of Khyber was ransacked by the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, yeah, that's not shocking. 1012. The Jews were expelled from Mainz. The year 1095 until the mid-13th century. The waves of crusades destroyed many Jewish communities in Europe, most notably in Rhineland, and in the Middle East, most notably in Jerusalem. A quick review of the Crusades. The Crusades were a series of military campaigns that took place between 1095 and 1291. These campaigns were fought between Christians and Muslims in the Middle East. The Crusades were motivated by religious fervor and a desire to gain wealth and land. What were the Crusades fought for? Control of holy sites. Christians and Muslims both considered certain sites in the Middle East to be sacred. The Crusades were fought to gain control of these sites, including the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Wealth and land. Crusaders hoped to gain wealth and land in the Middle East. How did the Crusades affect Europe? The Crusades enhanced the status of European Christians and made them major players in the fight for land in the Middle East. The Crusades also led to sustained cross-cultural encounters that impacted the sense of self for many Europeans for centuries. Mid-12th century. The invasion of Almohades brought to an end the golden age of Jewish culture in Spain. Among other refugees was Maimonides, who fled to Morocco, then Egypt, then Palestine. 12th to 14th centuries. France. The practice of expelling the Jews accompanied by confiscation of their property, followed by temporary readmissions for ransom, was used to enrich the crown. Expulsions from Paris by Philip Augustus in 1182, from France by Louis the ninth in 1254, by Philip IV in 1306, by Charles IV in 1322, and by Charles V in 1359, and then by Charles VI in 1394. 13th century. The influential philosopher and logician Raman Lull, who lived between 1232 and 1315, called for expulsion of all Jews who would refuse to convert to Christianity. Some scholars regard Lull's as the first comprehensive articulation in the Christian West of an expulsionist policy regarding the Jews. 1231. Simon de Montfort expels the Jews of Leicester. 1253. On July 23rd, the Jews of Vienne, France, were expelled by order of Pope Innocent III. So it looks like that's more Christian anti-Semitism there. 1275. King Edward I of England permits his mother of Eleanor to Provence to expel Jews from her dowager lands, including Cambridge, Gloucester, Marlborough, and Worcester. 1276. Jews expelled from Upper Bavaria. 1287. Edward I of England expels Jews from Gascony. 1288. Naples issues first expulsion of Jews in southern Italy. 1289. Charles of Salerno expels Jews from Maine and Anjou. 1290. King Edward I of England issues the Edict of Expulsion for all Jews from England. After 365 years, the policy was reversed in 1655 by Oliver Cromwell. 1294. On June 24th, the Jews of Bern, Switzerland, were expelled. Quote, several Jews were put to death there in consequence of blood libel, end quote. But a deal involving the Jews paying money averted the expulsion. 14th century. 1360. Jews expelled from Hungary by Louis I of Hungary. 1392. Jews expelled from Bern, Switzerland. Although between 1408 and 1427 Jews were again residing in the city, the only Jews to appear in Bern subsequently were transients, chiefly physicians and cattle dealers. 15th century. 1420 to 1421. Duke Albert V orders the imprisonment and forcible conversion to Christianity of all Jews in Austria. Some convert and others leave the country. In 1421, Austrian authorities again arrest and expel Jews, and Jews are banned from the capital, Vienna. 1442. Jews again expelled from Upper Bavaria. 1478. Jews expelled from Passau. 1491. Jews of Ravenna expelled. Synagogues destroyed. 1492. Ferdinand II and Isabella I issued the Alhambra Decree, General Edict on the expulsion of the Jews from Castile and Aragon, approximately 200,000, and from Sicily, 1493, approximately 37K. 1495. Charles VIII of France occupies Kingdom of Naples, bringing new persecution against Jews, many of whom were refugees from Spain. 1496. Jews expelled from Portugal. Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor, issues a decree expelling all Jews from Styria and Wiener Neustadt. 1498, Jews expelled from Navarre. 1499, Jews expelled from Nuremberg. Alright, so I'll be cutting off the video there at the end of the 15th century for part 2. Part 3 will be coming out and covering 16th century to another period of time. And I just want to talk about that because if you guys noticed, for a lot of the explosions listed here, I didn't really read out a lot of the sources because there were so many of them. I was just like trying to go over them, but I put them on screen, and if you read them, you probably noticed that a lot of the expulsions of Jews were either because they weren't Christian, because the Christian leaders wanted them to convert to Christianity, or because the Jews were very wealthy, because either the Jews were either the royalty wanted to steal the Jews' assets, such as their homes and other belongings, to sell them to bring more money to the crown. Basically, they basically just wanted to kick the Jews out and steal their assets, or it was that it they were threatened by them. They felt threatened by the Jews, you know, financial abilities. It's very interesting. Um, but yeah, make of that whatever you will. If you want to see part 3, you can like and subscribe, and peace out.